everyone, welcome back to Blooms and Bicycles. Hope you're having a lovely September so far. And as we welcome in the autumn time in all its fiery, vibrant glory, scattered across our lands are swathes of trees in almost luminous colours of crimson pinks, golden ambers and ruby reds. And low-lying sunrises bless us with dusky pink skies that sit as the perfect backdrop to the darker silhouettes of chimney stacks on roofs. Chugging out silvery wisps of smoke from households keeping warm inside, they become the perfect backdrop and accent colour to all of the surrounding glowing tones. And taking inspiration from the specialness of these everyday moments this time of year brings, we are so delighted to bring to you today the Autumn Sunrise Flower Collection. So today our flowers and water vessels are already prepared with both the water and the flower feed. However, if you would like to learn how to prepare your water vessel, you can find the link to our flower care video in the description box below. So in today's video we'll be sharing with you how to construct the Autumn Sunrise Teapot letterbox flowers. Initially you'll receive an upfront delivery of this 900ml dusky pink teapot, which will be your water vessel. And separately the flowers will arrive in letterbox friendly packaging. So today we'll be constructing our grid using the dyed red oak leaf and this beautiful variety of Grevillea. And also what is commonly known as kangaroo paw is also known as Anigozanthos. So these dyed oak leaves are actually very long. So we have the option of splitting these into a couple of pieces. And we'll do that by cutting on an angle just above one of the leaves so it looks as natural as possible. And then, as we always do, we'll start to create a cross formation. Removing any of the leaves which will fall under the waterline, as we always do. We'll just take those away and leave them to one side for now. I mean, look how beautiful they are. I'm sure we can fit a couple of them in the spout at the end. Now with this third one, we won't cut this down just yet. We'll see how we get on for the height with the other ones. So we now have 4 lovely pieces. So naturally, 3 of these are shorter than another one. So we'll create a triangle with the 3 shorter ones we have. So there's 1, and there's 2. I might just spin this around. And there's 3. And then we'll add this one in the centre. And now that gives us an idea as to how tall we want the other pieces to be. If we hold our next piece up against the teapot, it helps us with our eye to gauge where we want the cut to be. Again, there is no right or wrong with this, as we always say. So just let your personal creativity take you in whatever direction you want it to be. Now I've actually created pieces with this final stem that sit a lot shorter than the others, just because varying heights, again, they always create different levels and points of interest to keep the eye moving throughout the design. And we'll just put that in the mirroring position. So now we have a 5-point star with a centerpiece in the middle. And this goes back to those magic numbers of 3, 5 and 7. So we've implemented the number 5 and number 1. Number 1's a magic number as well. So now to take our piece of Grevillea. Grevillea does grow with a number of offshoots from the one stem, so you may actually find you get a piece with 2 smaller branches or 1 thicker stem. If you do receive one with a few smaller branches, you do have the option of splitting it off, and that's what we're going to do today. Otherwise, if you did want to keep it as one centerpiece, or you did just receive 1 stronger stem, you could position it in the center, and we'll just start to create some distinction between the fiery reds and the mottled greens, of which more will be introduced later on with other varieties. So we'll just weave these in between the leaves of the oak pieces. Beautiful. And now we'll take our kangaroo paw, or our Anigozanthos, and we want these to be at a relatively similar height to what we cut the oak pieces down to. Sometimes it's just a case of trial and error. And this Anigozanthos is actually one of my favourite varieties in autumn time. Probably what you can't see through the camera, which you can get in real life, is the fact that it has a real velvety texture. So you'll see what I mean when it gets delivered to you. So we don't want to detract from the other stems that we've positioned so far. So making sure the Grevillea still has its own space to shine, we've now positioned the Anigozanthos towards the front. But now we've done that, what I will just do is trim it down a little bit further, just so that it doesn't lean too far outwards at the front. I think with this final piece of Anigozanthos, it'll be nice to have this at the back. So we'll cut this down, but not so much. So now to introduce the next piece of greenery, this Maroon Sedum will sit quite nicely, I think, in the centre area of the grid. As you can see, there are many shoots coming off the one stem, so it does make it quite top heavy, and to help create an arrangement that still feels very loose and natural, we'll make sure that it has its place at the front, so if it does want to lean, it has the space to do so. And next we'll take our candle-shaped varieties of Amaranthus, which is in this beautiful rich colour, and this purple Astilbe, which is very similar, both offering very different textures to what we've got so far. So to create some natural balance, I think it'd be quite nice actually to have our Astilbe leaning off to one side and our Amaranthus somewhere along the same lines but in the opposite direction. So now we'll take our Red Berzelia. This is quite similar in shape to what we have here, so I think it would be nice to position this somewhere in the opposite direction, again because it's all about the balance. I think we'll just trim this down slightly more, but we're actually resting the stem on the top of the grid, so it doesn't actually go all the way down to the bottom of the teapot. It's sitting somewhere in the middle, where again, that's what the beauty of the grid offers. It allows you to get lots of unusual angles and positions, which you wouldn't be able to get if you didn't have that in place. So as you can see so far, we've introduced 6 stems which are along the maroon and reddy tone varieties. So the final one to make it to the magic number 7 is this incredible dahlia, which is actually iridescent on the underneath of the petals. And even though you'd think that's not anything of benefit, well actually with this particular variety it is, because as you can see it's like a pom-pom. The petals are in perfect formation all the way around the flower, close up to the stem itself. It's unbelievable and I can't wait for you to see it in real life. So we'll introduce this as definitely a focal point. So not trimming away too much from this lovely long stem. We'll add this in at the back of the grid, allowing it though to take centre stage. So as you can see, this dahlia is sitting very high in relation to everything else. This is perfect because now we'll start to position the roses, which will create that graduation of height from the centerpiece being the tallest with this dahlia, graduating through to lower pieces further out into the design. So as you can see, we have a number of different rose varieties in this piece, as we do with every item in this collection. And together they create an ombre effect like the autumn sunrise sky. Going from the very vivid corally oranges, and they're almost like a sunrise pink on the petals underneath, to the more dusky pink tones, to the more subtle and stony colours, to create a final pop and contrast of colour. So in terms of garden roses, you can see we have these 3 varieties, going from very vivid to much more softer in colour. So we'll start by arranging these 3 first, and then we'll arrange the other remaining pieces next. And I just think this looks like it could be the sun rising in the sky. So as well as the dahlia, I think this is nice as a centerpiece too. So we'll just trim our stem on the angle as we always do, and then using the grid to our full advantage, we'll weave in and out of the oak leaves and naturally find a place for it to sit once we find a gap in the grid in the right place. And then I think we'll just tease some of these petals. You don't have to do this, it just adds a bit of distinction. And then taking our final garden rose, you can just use your fingertips sometimes to just gradually tease open the flower bud, because honestly the geometry that you can find in a rose flower is unbelievable when you take a closer look, especially with these garden ones. So again, it's all about natural balance and, generally speaking, placing things in the mirrored position to one another. It doesn't have to be overly precise, because Mother Nature never is anyway, is it? As we always say. So now we'll just take our spray rose, which is the final one in a dusky pink colour, and we'll just think of creating a triangle, keeping it to the magic of 3, but maybe trying to do so in a way that's not necessarily typical or expected. And now to add our series of silver toned roses. We'll take our amber coloured one, and because there's a negative void here, we'll use this to fill that gap, further adding to the balance of the design. So we'll just trim down our stem, and we'll just look to rest this, still making sure it's submerged in the water. So now we'll take our dried asparagus ferns and our tulip, and given how there's an equal distribution of colour from the high to the mid section, I think it'd actually be quite nice to add this tulip at the very front, kind of woven in between the oak leaves. So we'll trim this right down, and we'll just thread this through the Anigozanthos and the oak leaves into a gap in the grid, which just allows it to naturally form. And actually what's really nice is the way the tulip is resting on the Anigozanthos, because sometimes in nature that's exactly how it works. Different varieties will actually intermingle with each other. And now finally, to add our dried asparagus ferns. Because these are dried, they don't actually need to be submerged in the water, so you can just weave them in between the stems as they are. So as long as they don't stick out, you can just use those to pad out any negative spaces. So taking a step back, I feel like the Amaranthus is on a whim on its own at the very back. So we'll make sure it stands more upright, but still ensuring that the sweep of the flower head goes off in the opposite direction to the sweep of the Astilbe on the mirror inside. And we also have this silver rose to add, which will sit perfectly in this void. So now just taking a final step back to make sure we have that overall balance now that all of our stems are in place. I think now actually that there is a heavy space of green here, as well as a heavy space of green there. And even though it didn't necessarily look this way earlier on, we can now see that because of everything else which is in place around it. What we can do quite simply is come in, trim away one of the offshoots and create a triangular formation, and do something very similar here with our sedum, because there is a number of flower offshoots that we can take advantage of. And we can start to dot them in around the opening of the vessel, just making sure that the oak leaves still have their space to shine as much as the sedum does. And again, we don't waste anything. So we can always put these to good use, these smaller pieces, in the spout. And maybe also add in some of the red leaves at the back. And then we'll take our red leaves, which have been cut away, scatter them around the bottom of the vessel as if they've just fallen from the tree. And there you have it, the Autumn Sunrise Teapot letterbox flowers. I hope you enjoy.